everybody, to another episode of the Rocking Midlife podcast. And like I say every week, I am super excited about this week's guest because she's tuning in all the way from Canada. So I have Annie Gaudreault joining me in the Rocking Midlife interview seat today. So welcome, Annie.
Hello, Kat.
Oh, it's so good to have you. I can't wait to dive in because I know so many people are going to really want to hear what you have to say. So a really brief overview for people listening, and trust me, I'm going to have all of Annie's bio and links and everything down in the show notes below. But really briefly, Annie is a health and wellness nutritionist and a woman's health coach. Now, she started her own company. In fact, she actually supports the needs of smart and successful individuals, which is all of us, isn't it? We're all smart and successful, giving confidence to do what they want with the energy that they need. Annie's going to be talking a lot about inflammation at menopause time, which I know is something so many of us deal with. So you're going to want to tune into this episode. So before we go on though, Annie, please tell us about yourself. Tell us a little bit of your story and how you've ended up doing what you're doing, and particularly talking about this topic of inflammation.
Well, it's so great to be here because I think that this is one of those topics that we just can't get enough information.
Yeah.
So really excited to be sharing this with your community today. I came from a business background. I actually worked with Fortune 500 companies.
Wow.
I was a very traditional, stressed out woman that was basically always running around and never felt like there was enough time in the day. And my to-do list was basically never really fully completed.
I think so many women will relate to you just on that alone.
Right? So, but I did have a bit of an early midlife crisis, if you want. And I did find myself in my late 30s, a long-term relationship ended. We had a company in common. So both my professional life, my personal life had a big meltdown. And it was a perfect time to reflect.
Yeah.
What do I want to do now? What do I not want to do? And what are my options? And it was really a gift in disguise, as that's when I started to see,
I think, how many of us hit some type of adversity in our late 30s through our 40s. And like you said, it's often that gift because it shakes you out of life as you know it, doesn't it? And then you get to examine and go, well, could be life better once you get through the grief and the mess? Yeah, I love that. It's a gift, an absolute gift.
Yes, it really, really ended up being such a beautiful gift, such an opportunity to say what's working and what's not working. And I had been what we call a weekend warrior athlete. I had been running marathons and it was kind of like my hobby. And I thought, it's got to be a way that I can align my professional life with what I love so much, what aligns with my values. And so that was the beginning of the journey. That was the beginning of what could I do? And I went back to school to become a nutritionist.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yes, it was great. It was an adventure. There were very, very many days where I thought, what have I gotten myself into? It was challenging. Doing biochemistry in your 40s is like, oh my God, my head's going to explode.
I relate to you, Annie, so much because I don't know if you know my story, but I went back and retrained to become a personal trainer at 43. And anatomy, oh my gosh, anatomy.
Yes.
It really is a challenge, isn't it? Trying to get the old brain sort of cranky again, and B, especially when it's subject matter that you've never actually really studied in any depth before. It's a challenge, but it's a testament to your tenacity, though, that you not only did it, but you came through the other side. So well done, you.
Thank you. Thank you. And it was really wonderful because I was just soaking up all the knowledge.
Yeah.
One thing that was happening, though, is that I found myself in the classroom, myself in my early 40s, but basically 95% of women, first of all, it was almost all women, and they were all in their 20s.
Yes.
And
I
thought, who is going to take care of women of my age?
Yes.
And all around me, we were all basically becoming perimenopausal. All of my friends and my, immediate network our health was starting to show a little bit of like, okay, this is maybe not going right. People were starting to have issues. Some people had some serious health conditions. And I thought, wow, we are not paying attention at all to this super important time of life. So that's when it became clear that it had to become my focus. And this was a
Yes.
great opportunity.
Fantastic. My gosh, you're preaching to the choir. That's what I'm looking for. My situation was the same. I was in a room of these children almost, these young people that were training to be personal trainers alongside me, and they were all, a lot of them were younger than my children. And the same thing, I looked around and thought, how is the average woman in particular, 40 and upwards, my demographic, going to relate to these young people and vice versa? Do they have the skills to understand that our bodies are different in our 40s than they are at our 20s? And yeah, so I love that that's how, through your own reinvention, you discovered the issue that
Yes.
you could go on to, create a solution for. So what did you do? How did you take that revelation and how did you bring about your new company?
So thankfully, it had a little bit of tools from my previous life in terms
Yeah,
of running a company. So I did launch, and like anybody that launches a new company, you basically tell everyone until they say, please don't talk about this anymore. So I basically told everyone I could think of. Right.
yes, of
And I reached
course.
out to everyone and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. If you know someone, please send them my way. And we are fortunate that we have platforms now where we can share, hey, I've
Yes.
made this change, right? I have this to offer now. It was scary. It is still daunting at times
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
a few years in. But it was, one day at a time, truly one day at a time. And
Yeah.
so the private practice grew. I started to do group coaching. I started to speak on stages.
Wonderful.
I did lots of podcasts like yours, of course, right? And that's how you build your name and your reputation.
Absolutely. So what do you do now? What do you look for in women? Why do they come to you? That's
Mm.
pressure, isn't it?
Oh, yes, well, because a midlife is often described as unfortunately in very negative terms,
Yes, it
right?
is.
It's going
Yep.
to be a time of loss, of deterioration, decay. And I'm not saying that for some it is not challenging, but it is an incredible, beautiful time for women of transition,
Mm,
finally liberated from this focus on procreation or having to deal with periods every month, etc. Like it's
yeah.
a wonderful time to also be able to focus on ourselves because the kids are usually older.
Yeah.
We have more time to dedicate to ourselves, and we also stop trying to be something else. What do I want? Not what does everybody wants me to be and
Yes.
who do I need to be type of thing. So it's a very exciting time. Now, what used to work for us in our 20s and our 30s needs to be adapted because it is no longer going to work for our bodies,
Yeah.
as we are entering our 40s and 50s. So anything that comes with this hormonal change goes from mental health to physical issues, right? We
Mm,
see weight gain, we see brain fog,
yeah.
we can experience, symptoms of menopause is like there's almost 40.
Yeah,
So
and it's so
there's
diverse, isn't it? There's so many diverse
yes,
symptoms.
exactly. And we
Yeah.
cannot just say all women go through menopause the same way.
Yeah.
Every woman is different. Like, of course, sometimes some of the symptoms may seem the same, but we are all unique because of our backgrounds, because of our, experiences, etc. So when I work with women, we really look at what is not going to work for you as you are at this stage. It really is a holistic approach. Nutrition is only one of many pillars that we address
Yeah.
so that you become more resilient and then you get to have the best second half of your life. because that's
Wonderful.
the opportunity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
love that, love that. So let's bring it back to inflammation then, because that's one of those really broad
Yes.
words. So what do you actually mean when you're talking about inflammation? And I mean, you've rattled off mental health and weight, which is an obvious one, but all the aches and pains and all the other things that happen at menopause. How does this word inflammation affect and impact all those different areas in our life, and what can we do about it?
Yes. Inflammation is a word that is being thrown out there quite a bit right now. So let me just try to explain it this way. Inflammation is the body's response when basically there is a discrepancy, right?
Right.
So when there's an injury, right, or there
Uh-huh.
could be something that is out of whack, as simple as that. So inflammation is actually a good response that the body has. Let's say you fall on your knee, you want your knee to repair.
Yeah.
Inflammation is how it repairs, right?
Right.
Lots of blood flow, the body, laser targets that area and
Yeah.
ensures that it repairs the skin, and eventually, it's healed. And that is a beautiful example of inflammation. Where it's not so kind is when we have what we call chronic inflammation, where let's just say that I was to use sandpaper, and
Hmm.
and just a little bit at a time I would be, rubbing my skin.
Yeah.
It would, nothing horrible would happen, but if I repeatedly do this every day, just a little bit at a time, it would create this massive rash
Mm.
and gap, and the skin would be all irritated.
Yeah.
So many things that we eat create this inflammation inside the body. And the way that we are designed as human beings is that there are some things, such as sugar. Everybody is talking about sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar causes inflammation, right?
Hmm.
Um, Excess sugar, not a little bit here or a little bit there. It's just ongoing excessive sugar consumption. The trick is that you and I could have the same diet of that sugar, but you would react one way. Maybe let's just say, you could get some skin issues,
Hmm.
and I could actually maybe have serious GI distress, right?
Right.
Cramps and bloating and so on.
Yes.
So the inflammation response will be unique to each of us. What happens with inflammation is that it literally fast tracks aging, right? It
Right.
is it is like it's like a storm,
Hmm.
right? That went through the home and everything is out of whack. That's what inflammation causes. We even call it in nutrition, we call it inflammaging.
Oh,
You
okay.
are fast tracking the aging process.
Ah,
So
okay.
that's what inflammation does. So at menopause, of course, there's a lot of fluctuation of hormones, etc. And let's say my diet is not optimal. I am going to basically exacerbate everything else that is going on in my body,
Wow.
because the body, you're literally, like putting it on fire. You are just lighting up all the switches that will create, it could create arthritis, right? It could be fast tracking osteoporosis, which is
Mm.
a major
Yes.
thing for women, of course, right? It could also, this is something we don't talk about, but cardiovascular health is the number one killer of women. While inflammation also goes in our arteries. So this is why we need to pay attention to inflammation.
Mm. Wow. I mean, gosh, where do you start? So it's kind of like the root cause to so many of these things, isn't it? And we kind of make the mistake, don't we, of just focusing on those individual things like, oh no, I've got arthritis, I need to go get help for that, or oh no, I've put on weight, so we go, get help with our weight, or oh no, I've got irritable bowel or something happening, but we never kind of talk much with our regular doctors about a root cause of inflammation. So, this is, you're obviously filling a real gap here. So where do you
Mm-hmm.
start with a client? Like, do you start with blood work? How do you determine where they're at and how to, address their inflammation.
Definitely. I mean, there are some markers inflammation, but we can also tell from someone's food journal.
Right.
I can tell from someone's lifestyle. Right? Let's not forget also that inflammation can be caused by an environment that is filled with, stress and negativity. Right? We see lots of levels of inflammation with people who work in high stress,
Right.
environments, for
Yeah.
example, right? So we look at, it's a 360-degree review of someone's life. Of course, we have to start with nutrition, activity, stress management, which are some of the big key pillars of inflammation. But we can do a lot. A lot of people solve their, joint issues and sleep issues and skin issues through a combination of nutrition, stress management, just a little bit more activity. It definitely, and that's root cause based. We go to the root cause.
Wow. That's fascinating. And how needed is that? Because like I said, we're so used to just looking at the different symptoms and treating the body as if it's like all in parts, not finding a root cause. And we have had a couple of other doctors who have come on in the past in the podcast as well who have said something similar, but it's still a light bulb moment every time I hear that, because then you hear from an amazing person like you, but then you go away and you sort of just slip back into normal everyday life of not addressing the root cause. So what are some quick tips then for the woman who's listening in? So obviously you're not going to solve it just like that, and like you said, it needs to be a very personal thing too, because ultimately we do all react differently. However, what are some general guidelines that you would recommend for women, going through perimenopause, menopause, even just coming out the other side, but are feeling like, I've got sore joints? I mean, I can talk about this. I've got, arthritis in my thumb joint coming up, who have got maybe bowel issues, who are dealing with, what are some basic guidelines that any woman could take on deck and apply right now?
I find that if we look at the science, one of the best framework, I'm going to call it framework, of eating is to follow a Mediterranean style of eating.
Yes.
And why? Because it's more plant-based, right? It's rich in fish, less in saturated fats. We know that these things also help women through menopause. It lessens actually a lot of the symptoms. We know processed foods creates inflammation. So when we eat very, in a framework, because I don't want to tie anybody to you must do this or you must do that, but we know that more plant-based is actually wonderful for the body. It helps with healing, right? It doesn't inflame the body. Doesn't mean eliminating, because I have nothing against meat eating. I'm actually a big fan of
yes.
Protein is a big issue for women.
Yes.
So we definitely want to make sure that we have enough protein.
And I live on a farm. I definitely. I'm all about good protein. Yes.
Fabulous. Yes, absolutely. Right. The source and the quality becomes more important. Right. And then starting to look at what is it in my life where I could make these small little changes? Where could I substitute, processed food, which will be inflammatory? Where can I remove the fats that will also be inflammatory? Right. So really looking at changing these things, because sometimes changing one of these things will make a really big difference.
Yeah. What about all our ladies who now, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I know there's so many women who are absolute coffee drinkers. I have to admit, and I know this is terrible, and I've gone back on it, but I have been drinking the old Coke Zero again after being off it for years, and that's got caffeine and stuff in it. What about the ladies who need that caffeine hit? Because I've heard that caffeine can contribute to inflammation too. Is that the case?
Science doesn't really say that. And the good news The good news for coffee is
For the coffee girls is good news.
again, yes, exactly. They're all going, oh, thank the Lord. One or two small cups of coffee per day has been proven to be absolutely fine. We get in trouble because of all the things we put in the coffee, right? And once in a while, I will have a client that doesn't do well on coffee whatsoever. Coffee is a bit acidic, and for some people, it actually irritates their stomach.
Right.
Full stop.
Yes.
But from a pure scientific point of view, 1 or 2 cups per day is not an issue. Above 2, I don't recommend.
Hey, so you ladies who are coffee drinkers, you can thank me now. You're off the hook, but you're not allowed too many. And do you suggest the rule that I've heard, people say about not having caffeine, say after midday or things like that? Is that an old wives' tale, or is that something you would recommend to women as well, Annie?
Yes. So there are 2 kinds of people in this world.
Yeah.
80% of us, because we need the liver to detoxify ourselves. We cannot drink coffee a lot more than 1 or 2 p.m. because it disturbs, the circadian system.
Right.
But there are about 20% of the population where their detoxification pathway is very different. And they can have an espresso at 8 p.m. and it does not affect them whatsoever.
Wow.
So you have to find out who you are. Yes, yes. So this is individual.
Yeah. I just presumed that was kind of like a blanket thing for everyone with coffee. So caffeine, I should say. So that's fascinating. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because being married to an Italian, like I was telling Annie earlier, I'm so used to seeing a lot of the older Italians in his family years ago, having that really strong espresso after dinner, very late at night, and they were still up early and functioning the next day.
And a lot of people, some people can.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up here. And I was just saying to Annie earlier, we could go for hours because, we could easily just go through each symptom. But what I love is you're giving us some nice broad things. So definitely leaning more towards the Mediterranean diet, not overdoing the coffee or the things you put in it. What was some of your, exercise? You were saying movement, sugar
Yes.
and processed foods.
And the movement, I would actually also just say that while we could focus on cardio in our 20s and 30s, this is time now to actually less cardio, but more strength work.
Yes, resistance work. Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Get yourself a trainer like yourself. And really, really, this is going to pay back, not just through midlife, but healthy aging. It's like beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what you do now is an investment for your 80s, isn't it? So we kind of need to be looking at it that way. What about sleep? Sleep, obviously, we hear about that's an important one, but does that have an impact on inflammation as well?
Definitely. And this is a bit of a catch-22 because as our sleep can be interrupted, it can also fuel that inflammation. So that's why we can never look at these things separate. Yes. We need to address them together because they are part of that same pie.
Right. Yes.
Right? So prioritizing sleep is very, very important.
Fantastic. Any final one real takeaway you would love to leave with our listeners, Annie? Putting you on the spot here, girl.
I would say that this is definitely a mindset time where we need to shift to this is the beginning of the best rest of my life. And what are the things that I need to do to basically, upgrade my whole life so that I get to enjoy this beautiful life that I have in front of me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Annie, now quickly tell us, have you got a program? Have you got anything especially that you are launching at the moment? I'm going to have all your details below anyhow, but quickly let us know what you've got happening, how people can work with you.
Absolutely. So I would invite anybody that, was listening today to just go on my website and book a complimentary call with me. I have an amazing group program that would be ideal for women in midlife that are really looking to, change the course of the next 5 years. Get on my website, sign up for the newsletter, tons of amazing resources there, and let's chat. I can promise you, we will see how we can upgrade your health and your wellness.
Oh, wonderful. That just sounds fabulous. Well, I want to thank you again, Annie. It's just been absolutely wonderful having you here with us. You're doing an incredible job, and we really, really appreciate, your heart and the tips and the information that you're giving here. So, like I said, everybody, please look in the notes below, whether you're watching on YouTube, an audio platform, or you're reading from my blog, listening from there. You'll find all of Annie's contact details there. So jump on, like she said, get on her newsletter, get informed so that you can be doing the work now, creating the lifestyle now that's going to set you up for longevity and being able to enjoy your life for as long as possible. A reminder, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe, please like, please leave a comment, share it out. Same with any audio platform, please like, leave a review. It helps get this podcast out so that other midlifers can find it and hear guests like Annie and the other wonderful people who we've interviewed. So thank you again for being part of the Rocky Midlife podcast, everybody, and I will look forward to seeing you next week.